Let's do this. I mean, one of the biggest decision points of the week is too big dog or not too big dog, right?
We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by FanDuel. Week 4 pivots, leverage plays, GPP plays of the week, position by position. These are the DFS players that might go overlooked in our contest that can help us get to the top of the leaderboards. And as always, excited to dive deep into some tournament plays, but you're going to want to stick around until the end because I'm going to be building a FanDuel team live on stream, and that team will be entered in the listener league at FanDuel.com/Holka. So make sure you get in there before it fills. $5, 3-entry max. Say it with me. Quite literally the best contest structure in all of DFS. We review this contest every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern time on stream. So join us next week for that live coaching session with our community. All I ask in return is that if you're a new player, maybe it's just been a while since you tried out FanDuel, it's that you support the show by restarting that journey at my link, FanDuel.com/Holka. But I'm doing a great job of bearing the lead here because the good news is I'm not alone. Welcoming back my good buddy, director of VFS at 4for4 Football. You can find him on Twitter at TJ Hernandez. TJ, let's just jump right into it today. Leverage quarterback of the week is going to be Lamar Jackson. He's 8K on FanDuel at Denver. So he's actually projecting right now as the 6th most popular quarterback, kind of a middling team total overall in that game against Denver. On the road, obviously, a tough elevation spot. But Matt, tell us why you're bullish.
Yeah, this week is different from the last couple of weeks. The last couple of weeks, we've had these crazy expected shootouts, high-scoring games, very close spreads. So we still have a couple games with big totals, but the spreads aren't that close in that game. We have a couple teams with high implied totals, but the spreads are big in that game. So I think this is a week with those spreads being pretty big at the top that we can get away from the games that seem like the obvious games where in the past 2 or 3 weeks we've feel like we've really been forced into like those Chargers games, Chiefs games. There's a lot of scenarios where you can say these high scoring games, the game script just gets out of hand and we don't get the shootouts that we're hoping for. So on FanDuel, when we want to be contrarian, especially at quarterback, we can do so with expensive guys because salary allows you to do so. So in those spots, where can I be contrarian and with a really good player? And Lamar's a really good player. His mobility is going to make him more or less matchup proof. I know people are going to look at week 3 and say, how is he matchup proof when he just was the chalk against the Lions and didn't really pay off, or was chalkier against the Lions and didn't pay off. And I watched that game a lot because I was really heavy on Lamar, and it was just a case of missed opportunities. We had Marquis Brown dropping touchdowns left and right, penalties bringing back touchdowns. So it's not like Baltimore wasn't moving the ball. It's not like Lamar wasn't rushing it. It was just really bad touchdown luck, in my opinion. So this is a spot where people are going to look at these high-priced quarterbacks, look at the defenses in this game, and I think really shy away from it. But I'm kind of the mindset that efficient offensive play is going to override good defenses, and both of these quarterbacks are pretty efficient and are willing to throw the deep ball. Lamar's first in intended air yards. Teddy Bridgewater surprisingly top 7 in intended air yards, and Teddy Bridgewater also top 3 in just yards per pass attempt. We know Lamar could get back up there, and I just think this game has. I don't know if it has like 60-point shootout potential, but I think enough scoring potential that these quarterbacks, obviously Lamar with his rushing ability, can have ceiling games. And Denver's been really good on defense, but they've also played Daniel Jones, Trevor Lawrence, and Zach Wilson. So what do they look like against Lamar? I just kind of just like this game sneakily overall. And if I could get Lamar at like 3%, I'm kind of looking at that all the time.
I really like these type of plays because we'd be thinking about Lamar completely differently if Marquis Brown hauls in even one of those touchdowns, let alone 3 of them. We talked about this offense a little bit with Harmon in the wide receiver video, so definitely check out the trending wide receivers if you haven't already. And he thinks that like the return of Bateman shortly for this offense could mean just a lot of good things for Marquis Brown, for Lamar Jackson. So right after a spot where people were playing him a lot, and now he's just dropped off because of some touchdown variance, I really like the idea of going back to him, especially because his price is still to a point where there's going to be other options that people are going to prefer in tournaments. So I love that quite a bit. You mentioned Josh Allen, so let's move over to your leverage running back of the week, Zach Moss. He's 6K on FanDuel at home against this Houston Texans team. The Bills, the highest implied team total on the entire slate per FanDuel Sportsbook, but Moss is projecting for sub 5% ownership in tournaments. So tell us why you're bullish.
Yeah, this is I guess you would call it kind of a basic leverage play where everybody's going to be on the passing game and you could get on the running game. And it's not just the big implied point total they have. It's like we talked about with a lot of these games, obviously not to this extent, but 15.5 point favorites are the Bills. So that's obviously a game script where if things do fall in a situation where Zach Moss or the running game, they fall into the early touchdowns and the defense plays good against Houston. Buffalo's defense has just been playing good in general, but as big favorites, it could be a situation like we saw a couple weeks ago against Miami where Buffalo can score 35, 40 points, and Josh Allen doesn't necessarily have his ceiling game. He's going to be popular. All of his pass catchers are going to be popular, especially after Emmanuel Sanders had his big game last week. And the reason I like Zach Moss is he missed week 1, came back week 2, saw about 40% backfield share last week, about 60% of the snap share and the touch share in the backfield. He's missed a game. He's still 3rd in the league with 7 carries inside the 10-yard line. And just an interesting note, Joe, I kind of track tournament winners every year and on a weekly basis. So far this year, every Sunday Million winner has used a mini stack with a running back, and 2 of those have been a mini stack with a running back and opposing pass catcher. So just to kind of throw a little juice on it for the listeners, I think a Zach Moss and a mini bringing it back with Brandon Cooks is a really good way just to leverage this game in general. And Zach Moss, I don't know, I'm still kind of early in my ownership projections, but I think we could see Chuba Hubbard can get some ownership at 6,300, depending how the Darrell Henderson, Sony Michel situation plays out. If Henderson sits, I think Michel will get some ownership. Maybe Trey Sermon gets some ownership. So I'm not sure if Moss is a salary pivot yet, but by Sunday, he could be like a little bit of a salary pivot.
I think he will be, and I love the mini stack with Brandon Cooks, like leading the entire league and weighted opportunity. Obviously, that's the one metric at wide receiver that I value a ton, just because it takes in consideration target market share, but also air yards. So we'll continue to talk through that in this segment, because you can find guys that are undervalued just by looking at that metric alone. Everyone wants the answers to the test, TJ. If you want one metric to walk through at wide receiver, I think weighted opportunity is that. Before we move on to wide receiver, though, something's been bothering me a little bit. The exact video that you're watching right now, only about half of those people were subscribed. I went back and looked at it last week. I think we got a couple thousand views on the video. Only half of those people are subscribed to the channel. So I'm not sure what we have to do here. And I'm not going to ask you to bully the people like I do Jake, TJ, but that just seems ridiculous, right? Half the people are subscribed. Like, what's that all about?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just going to have to take one of these lineup builds and win the Sunday Million with it, and then I think people have no choice but to subscribe. But I mean, man, we're putting out some good plays. I don't know if you've been tracking the plays individually, but at least in this segment, we've put some contrarian plays that have been hitting, that have found their way into Sunday Million lineup. So if you're not subscribing, you might be missing out on a $250,000 or something like that.
TJ, you might have, I guess, a future in YouTube, man. That was great. That was very authentic. I appreciate it. Leverage wide receiver of the week, Michael Pittman, 5,800 on FanDuel at Miami. Talking about weighted opportunity, he's the 8th highest weighted opportunity in the NFL through 3 weeks now. So he's projecting at sub 5% ownership in tournaments right now. We actually talked about this exact situation a little bit with Jake Seeley on the locks of the week. So definitely check out that video after this one. But tell us why you like him as a leverage play in week 4, Jake.
Yeah, I don't know if he offers much leverage this week, but he's definitely one of my favorite one-off contrarian plays. Like, we still need a couple of those, right? We're not going to have every single one of our plays isn't going to be a leverage play. Every single play isn't going to be part of a stack or a mini stack, but you nailed it. His weighted opportunity is huge. Over the last 2 weeks, his 24 targets are top 3 in the league. He's had a 33% target share or higher in each of those 2 games. He's also one of 20 players with an average of over 100 air yards. Has played all 3 games this year. He's a little bit of a pivot. I mean, he's priced right next to Manny Sanders and Cole Beasley, who we kind of mentioned up top. They're going to be popular. And then I think down at 6,200, Robert Woods might get some ownership because he's just so much cheaper than Cooper Kupp now. And people are still going to be targeting that Rams offense, obviously. So a little bit of a leverage as a price pivot. And this is another game. We talked about Broncos and Ravens. This is a game that I think has sneaky scoring upside. Like, again, I don't think it's like a 60-point total, but one that I wouldn't mind betting the over on. The Colts defense, they've really struggled against passers, so we could get a little bit of correlation there. And then if the Colts can move the ball on the ground against a really bad Miami run defense, it just sets up scoring opportunities for everybody. And even when they do throw, like you said, if a receiver is getting that much of the opportunity, even if they're not throwing a lot, it's enough that he has a lot of value. And priced sub 6K for all the work he's getting, it's almost just a straight value play at this point. And when, like you said, when it's going to be sub 5% and the price is that egregious, it's hard to ignore.
I love the play. Let's just take a step back macro wise. Like, I think people they loop all of these buzzwords into one. It's a pivot, it's a leverage play, it's a GPP play, it's a contrarian play. Do you look at things a little I guess, what is the difference between a pivot versus straight leverage, right? Because just because something's a price pivot doesn't necessarily mean it's going to give you leverage on the field, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, there are spots like Michael Pittman is just interesting because he's in kind of a unique price range. I mentioned we have Manny, Beasley, and Robert Woods, but there's not a lot of if you have two players in this price range, you're probably going to be on your way to a unique build already. And I am paying attention to leverage. I wrote this up a couple weeks ago in my GPP review. What we kind of see consistently is it's not just these players like Zach Moss, who's a leverage off the Bills offense. It's the players that can, in certain spots, give you the most leverage. Are they leverage not just on their passing offense, but maybe on a running back on the other team and a salary pivot? If you could get all of those three things in one, then you're not just getting leverage, but you're getting maximum leverage on the field. So we talk about trying to get the fewest things right, but also how can you benefit the most when multiple things go wrong? So I'm thinking about that as well.
Yeah, I'm as guilty as anyone, I guess, of putting them in these buckets. So feel free to correct me as we progress through here if I call something leverage that you would consider more of a price pivot. Sure. So your tight end leverage / pivot / GPP / contrarian play of the week is Kyle Pitts. He's 5,800 on FanDuel. He's at home against Washington this week, projected, at least as of right now, sub 10% in tournaments. So tell us why you're on him at tight end.
Just kind of hoping that his usage turns into fantasy points. And it's not like he's having necessarily a bad year for a rookie tight end. Everybody was just expecting him to come in the league and be Kelsey. And obviously that was a little bit overblown, but he's still in a situation where he's second among all tight ends in air yards. And this is a Washington defense. If we adjust for strength of schedule, 4for4 just came out with their initial schedule adjusted rankings against each position. Washington's 27th against tight ends in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. They're allowing the most completions on deep passes. That's 15 or more air yards. This game has a decent total, 47.5 points. Washington's given up the 5th most overall passing yards in the league. So, I mean, this is just a spot where on the other side, Logan Thomas, I believe he's the same price. So it could be interesting there how those ownership percentages shake out. And I think people just aren't going to really know what to do with this game. Both of these defenses have been playing really bad, but there's not really anybody that we get excited about. I think ownership's going to fall pretty heavily on Kelsey and Kittle. And then after that, it's kind of hard to figure out. Waller's not on the main slate. No tight ends have been super consistent. Hawkinson not in a great spot. So I think Pitts is just kind of going to be that sub 10% because people don't know what to do with them. And he's in a spot where that usage, again, kind of like Michael Pittman, his usage doesn't necessarily translate to his ownership or his salary. So I like him a lot here too.
Yeah, we're almost just betting on kind of the natural talent with Pitts, right? That he's going to pop off at some point. Hopefully we end up getting him at lower ownership. But outside of Calvin Ridley, which is a whole nother discussion, there isn't really a ton of competition here for targets in Atlanta. Yeah. So I still think that they're going to try and scheme him the ball. Whether Arthur Smith is successful in doing that, it remains to be seen. But that's why you're getting him at sub 10%. So let's move on to your leverage defensive play of the week. It's actually the exact pivot of Jake's in his locks of the week. So the Detroit Lions, they're 4,100 at Chicago. It sounds like we're running it back against Justin Fields, doing it at sub 5% ownership at the time of this recording. Is that kind of the impetus just to keep going? If people don't think Fields is that bad, are we playing maybe he is? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, we saw Fields get sacked 9 times last week. A lot of people are going to say, well, that was against a Cleveland pass rush that is excellent. Detroit is top 5 in adjusted sack rate according to Football Outsiders. And I mentioned that the Ravens, they left a lot of opportunity on the field last week. But one spot they did struggle is Detroit was kind of in Lamar's face a little bit, and obviously that's different with Lamar because he gets away from it so fast. But they were able to sack him. He had a couple of plays where he was so flustered, like he took a out of bounds sack instead of throwing it away. They were just chasing him down a lot, so they're able to get after him. And I've seen multiple threads this week on Matt Nagy and how he's just not prepared to call an offense for Justin Fields, and he's not going to design things to let Fields get out on his own and improvise and possibly pull it down and run. I mean, even before Fields, this is a Chicago offensive line that was struggling to protect Andy Dalton. So with the pass rush against this offensive line, and it's, even though the Lions are underdogs, it's small underdogs. Even Chicago is a favorite. They're only implied for 22 points. So I think this is a spot where game script can just kind of flip a little bit, because we did see Field struggle because Detroit has been able to get after the passer a little bit. And Deandre Swift, I think, can grab a little bit of ownership this week. And if you could pair him up with the Detroit defense, maybe not a leverage play, but you can offset his ownership. Or if you do play Detroit without DeAndre Swift, you're getting some of that correlation without the ownership on Swift as well. So an interesting way to think about the Lions in tournaments there with DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, defense is definitely not a position where I prefer to eat the chalk. So trying to get different with a lot of upside, a team that's going to bring pressure, that sort of thing. So you guys know the drill at this point. You have TJ's pivot. So I want you to pause this video, and I want you to go into the comments right now and give your favorite week 4 tournament play. TJ, you ready to build a FanDuel team?
Yeah, we'll try. This is kind of a crazy week, but let's see what we come up with.
All right, so this team will be in the listener league, fanduel.com/Holka. Make sure you get in there. If you have already, definitely run that thing back. It's a 3-max tournament, $5, rake free, huge prizes, all that good stuff. Battle to guess. TJ, Jake, and Rich will be in there on these teams that they're building early in the week. It's not an easy thing to do. So Reeves currently has a minus $2 profit, same as you, TJ. Nice. So you guys have both cashed it once. Jake is sitting at a minus $15 profit. So Jake's 3 weeks in, hasn't cashed yet. So let's see what we can do here. I'll give you a start though. We talked about that mini stack earlier with Brandon Cooks. You want to start there? That gives you a ton of salary to work with.
Yeah, let's start there. I like the theme of sticking to our guns and seeing what it gets us, putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak.
I like it. So we got Zach Moss and Brandon Cooks. I'm going to force you to pick at least a cheaper defense to start with, so we have a better idea of what the salary is looking like. It's kind of gross down there, man. Is there a cheaper defense that you like? I think the cheapest one that I'd be, I guess, somewhat interested might be Kansas City, maybe Carolina with passing attempts on the other side for Dallas. But do you have one down here that you like?
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned Detroit there at 41. They're not that cheap. I mean, always looking for a favorite, right? So let's just go a little bit. Let's go sub 4K, I guess. And you mentioned the Chiefs. They're the cheapest favorite. You know what? Actually, I didn't realize how cheap the Chiefs were, though. I believe they are the cheapest favorites.
Yeah, sounds right. 3,700.
Yeah. Let's go with the Chiefs.
Okay, so you have a ton of salary to work with here. 7,200. Is there a stack, I guess, that you have in the back of your mind, or we can just kind of move through some other plays if you want?
Well, let's do this. I mean, one of the biggest decision points of the week is to big dog or not to big dog, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And I think we've talked about this a lot. We don't like to chalk big dog it, do we?
I like that.
So I'm gonna say we're not going with Derrick Henry.
All right, X amount.
And then Josh Allen is mega chalky. Let's go with the contrarian stack in one of the highest scoring games, the Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. Let's see what it looks like if we go the Hurts side of it and tack on a Kelsey bring back, kind of a contrarian build, a naked quarterback with a opposing tight end bring back.
Yeah, you'll have the out if you wanted to add Devonta to that. So I guess if we're going to lead some direction, I would say we probably want at least a player or two from the afternoon. So far, just 1 p.m. only players. So is there a guy at 4 p.m. that you're especially bullish on in tournaments? 2,000 person field, so it's not like we really have to go crazy with a stack. So I don't mind the naked quarterback in a tournament of this size.
Yeah, and we're already pretty contrarian here. I think that we do want some pieces, like we don't need to go all the way contrarian across the board, right?
So we got Arizona Rams, and then we got Seattle, San Francisco. We got Pittsburgh, Green Bay, and Baltimore, Denver at the 4 p.m. slots.
Yeah, we need we don't really necessarily have like a big stud in our lineup yet, right? So
yeah, 6,800 the rest of the way, tons of room.
Yeah, I think Devontae Adams. Let's get him in there.
Nice.
As our nice big pass catcher. And then we still need a second running back. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we need a running back, a wide receiver, and a flex, and we got 6,400 the rest of the way.
All right, we mentioned Deandre Swift, and I think he'll be relatively popular, but I think somewhere in that like 15 to 20% range is fine.
Okay.
Again, I just kind of like that game script. He's getting a lot of high value touches. Those are weighted touches of targets plus touches inside the 10. So let's throw Swift in there and at least go with my game flow narrative of the Lions winning.
I like it. So 5,700 the rest of the way. So we're going to need something cheap here, unless you wanted to add Devonta as your last wide receiver. That's kind of what we're looking at, basically. Definitely like a cheaper play here, probably at wide receiver.
What's our average left?
5,750. So
for a wide receiver and a flex.
For wide receiver and a flex. So you're probably looking like 6,300 or lower at wide receiver, unless you really wanted to punt off that flex spot. We could get Pittman in there at 5,800. You mentioned him before.
Yeah, I was actually kind of thinking of that unique build if we're at 5,700.
Yeah, then there's 5,700 left
in that.
It gets hairy fast, especially if you start to jam in guys like Kelsey and Adams, right? So like a lot of your and man, Jalen Hurts is still almost 8K too. I didn't realize how expensive he was. So
yeah, let's try this. Let's go with a you know what? That's a little bit too contrarian, I think. Let's try to get Pittman in there, and maybe we'll move down at our running back salary.
Okay, so if we wanted to move off, let's move off of Swift then, probably, I guess, because that doesn't really make as much sense with the rest of the build. So if you wanted to go below Swift, you're looking at, man, Swift is more expensive than Aaron Jones now. It's crazy. Chris Carson, 7,300. We have Zeke at 7K, who I think will be decently popular after last week, but tough matchup. Chuba Hubbard is 6,300. There's definitely some options at running back this week. Chase Edmonds was someone that Reeves brought up in kind of that high-paced game in Arizona. That gives us another 4 p.m. player. So I think we probably do need some more 4 p.m. exposure here, because right now we just have Devontae Adams. But it's your team. This is one that you have to live with, not me. That's the best part of all this, is I don't have to pick the team. You guys do.
Right. Man, but this is probably our tougher build of the week. I mean, I know we want late game exposure, but I'm almost tempted to just go with
Good. We could also.
I'm almost tempted to just go with like kind of like another mini stack with Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman.
I don't mind that.
And just hope for a good game flow. Hope for a good game flow from Indy.
Yeah, that gives us a lot more flexibility at the flex. So if we have now we have 6,800 left. That's if we do stay with the Kansas City defense. So that gets us to Alexander Madison if Dalvin Cook doesn't play. That gets us to Julio Jones. That gets us to Odell Beckham. Like a lot better options now in this range, 6,800 or less.
I'm going to go with my read on. You know what? Yeah, I'm going to go with my read on that possible over on the Ravens Broncos game and throw Marquis Brown in there.
I love it. I mean,
so this is the only thing I don't like about this lineup is it's probably a little too contrarian than we need to be. But hey, we'll see what happens.
You got 400 left. If you didn't want to play Kansas City defense with Kelsey, now you could get to Detroit at 4,100. Easy game.
Yeah, let's do it. So serendipitous.
TJ Hernandez, everyone. Want to make sure everyone remembers, though, that I do give away free sports memorabilia every single week. So check out this video right here to see what I pulled from the Week 4 Pristine Auction Mystery Box.